thank you for tuning in. We're going to look at GitHub Actions and reusable workflows today, which is a pretty important technique that you need to be aware. In this video, you can expect a very short introduction, some example code on how you can get started, and some common mistakes that you do if you start the journey towards reusable GitHub Actions. So please stay tuned and let me know if you have any questions or feedback. As you most probably know, GitHub has a marketplace for reusable GitHub Actions, and this means that you can access other users' actions within your workflows. Now, today we're not going to look at reusable actions only, we're going to look at reusable workflows. So you as a user can also get workflows that you can use that others have written for you. And this empowers you to quicker and faster and better make use of things that of solutions that others have solved already. So I'm going to demo how to set that up. I'm going to give you some insights into how to make use of reusable workflows and also give you some guidance on maybe how you can write them for your own benefit. So our examples that we're going to look at today are both in my personal GitHub repository. We are going to look at two different repositories. The first one is the GitHub shared workflows, and the second one is the GitHub reusable workflows demo. This one will contain all of the workflows that can be shared with other repositories, and the second one will be using those. The cool thing about GitHub Actions and reusable GitHub Actions is that you cannot only use the ones that are within your organization, but you can also look at other reusable workflows that already exist that you can get access to without any changes. So you can use other automations that people have built within the open source community. And this will empower you to quickly solve some of the things that you want to have within your CI/CD flow. So let's get going. We have the GitHub shared workflows directory. We have the GitHub reusable workflows demo, and I'm going to open both of them on my Visual Studio locally. We're going to start looking at the two different repositories. As you can see over here, I have them here, GitHub reusable workflows demo and GitHub shared workflows. GitHub Actions workflows are traditionally placed under .github/workflows directory, and over here I have a show information workflow. This show information workflow doesn't do anything but just outputting some information about how the repository is actually behaving and what information do we have. It has in line number 25 to 27 an important piece where actually we see the trigger information of this workflow. Now, I can trigger this workflow just within this repository as well. For that, I'm moving over to the GitHub Actions extension. I'm going to look at my GitHub shared workflows repository. I can see over here that there is a workflow called repository information. This is the one that we see over here. And I can start that right from the UI. I need to decide which version I want to start, and I'm going to run the main version. And now when refreshing this on the left-hand side, I will see a new execution of this. Let's see what this outputs. If we open this in the browser, and we see the GitHub Actions starting in the way that we usually want them. I want it to start. The job is being set up. And hopefully we will also be seeing some information about the repository over here. We will see over here that the trigger repository, the one that started this workflow, is the workflow itself. Now we're going to look at the other repository. In this other repository, we also have a simpler workflow setup. This is the GitHub reusable workflows demo repository. Once again, here we have the .github folder and the workflows folder, and here we have an example repository. As you can see, this one is supposed to do nothing but hello world. But we also see that this uses another workflow from the same organization. Okay, now what happens if we trigger this one? Let's have a look. If we go into the GitHub reusable workflows demo, we see the same workflow that we were just talking about, and I can start that here in the same way. Let's issue that on main, and now we should see an execution number 6. We will now see here that there is a hello world and a show info repository. Let's have a look. we see those two actions being executed one after another because they are in the same stage. As you can see, we see hello world first. Hello world executes hello world. And the show info now refers to that other job. We will see that over here because here it uses that workflow that we just set up in that GitHub shared workflows directory. And we also see the repository information. So we see information about the repository that we're actually in right now. And we also see the trigger repository. So in contrary to this one, where we had seen their information about the GitHub shared workflows repository and the GitHub reusable workflows demo over here, we now see the information of that source repository. Now, wait, does this really mean that any workflow that you write in your GitHub public repository can be reused by other users? No, of course not. There is a secret thing that you need to actually do in order to make use of that. And I will show you that Johannes also, when setting this up, failed with that. So over here, the execution number 4, I had tried to execute that workflow. So, and this is now in the GitHub Reusable Workflows demo repository. I had tried to execute that example workflow. But as you can see, GitHub told me, no, Johannes, that's not possible because the workflow is not reusable as it is missing an on workflow call trigger. Okay, cool. What does that mean? If you want to be able to trigger a workflow from a different repository, or if you want to allow others to trigger that workflow, what you need to do is you need to, in the upper part of the workflow, you need to add on workflow call. On workflow call. This is the permission that you need to the workflow that should be allowed to be reused. That's what we added over here, and this is why we were able to reuse this workflow. By looking at the specification of the GitHub Actions workflow, you will also see that if you go over here, there's multiple other options that you can add to that on workflow call thing. So you can also pass additional information to allow inputs being passed over, to allow outputs and secrets being passed over. And this is pretty important that you also have a look on that. And as we will see in one of the next sessions, there might be the need that you also add some protection into those reusable GitHub Actions that you built. So this is pretty important that you also read the spec on how this actually works in order to be able to get back and forth with the workflows that are being called over here. So going back to the repository, as you can see, we added the on workflow call over here. And in the example workflow, we are now able to access that workflow. As you can see at the latter part of this one, we are also able to refer to certain versions or chars within that repository. So given we would have another branch here, we could also change this and refer to the branch called branch example, if we want to, and execute a different state and different version of the actual workflow itself. And as I was recording this, I tried to find reusable workflows, and it wasn't as easy as I thought, right? So yes, there is a marketplace for reusable GitHub Actions, but how do you find reusable GitHub workflows? So I went to, I tried to use the search. It took me a while to come up with this search path, which essentially points at path GitHub and has workflow call in it. And with that, you will see that there is a bunch of things that have a workflow call as an option. I didn't find anyone that I wanted to specifically demo, but this gives you a little bit of a possibility to find reusable workflows that you can actually use directly and that you can then maybe make use of. So here, maybe it would be cool if someone knows how to identify and find reusable GitHub Actions or GitHub workflows, specifically, please let me know, right? So I can add that to the show notes later. And if you have any workflows that you believe we should share with the rest of the audience, please also add that in the comments below in the repository. So as we have seen, it is pretty easy to start with GitHub reusable action workflows. And with those reusable workflows, you can now make your life easier. So if you build a workflow in a specific repository that solves one of the problems, you can make that available for everyone else in your organization, or also for everyone else in the open source community. And you can combine several steps of workflows with that. I'm going to continue my journey on finding out how reusable workflows can actually be used, and also maybe if I find any good ones, I'm going to add them here to the show notes at the end. In one of the next episodes, I'm going to talk with Richard about how difficult it actually is and how much security concerns reusable workflows can introduce. So I'm looking forward for that episode. Please subscribe to the channel if you're not yet subscribed, and let me know if you have any other content that you would like to see, all focused on CI/CD and all different areas of cloud automation. Thank you so much for watching this video until the end, and I hope that this gave you some help on how to get started with a better CI/CD journey for yourself.